Hello everyone, how's it going? It's Brandon, that vegan anime guy, back with a new segment on the channel, so I shouldn't even say back. This is a new segment on the channel called Music Mondays. It's not going to be every Monday. I'm planning on doing this at least one Monday of every month, and it's just going to be me talking about any topic related to music. It could be reviews, it could be lists, it could be an artist's worst to best, it could be me ranking certain songs or albums or whatever. Me talking about new songs, new album, which is what I'm doing in this video. This video, as you can probably tell by the title, is a review of the new Front Bottoms album, In Sickness and in Flames. The New Jersey duo of Brian Stella and Matthew Witczek, forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong, I have no idea how to say that, are back at it again with their 5th studio album, their 7th album altogether if you count Grandma vs. Pneumonia and I Hate My Friends. And it is their longest album yet at 52 minutes in length with 12 tracks. The band started out with an indie rock, alternative rock, folk punk sound to them, but over the years, as the records went on, they included a little more pop and emo into their music. My sister has listened to the Front Bottoms for years, so I've heard them, but not actually actively listened to them. They would just be playing in the car when I was with her all the time, but I just recently got into them. Less than a year ago, she turned me on to them. Love their first 2 studio albums. They're self-titled. These are my sister's, not mine. I want to get mine soon. The Front Bottoms. And Talent of the Hawk, their 2nd studio album, probably my favorite, maybe tied with Back on Top. But yeah, like I was saying, I really enjoyed their first 2 studio albums, and in time, I came to appreciate most of Back on Top. I like about half the album, but the half that I like is really good. Oh, what's that? What about Going Gray, their last album? We don't talk about that here. But seriously though, I did not like their last album at all. The only song I pretty much liked on it was Vacation Town, so I was skeptical about what they would do next, to say the least. I did enjoy some EPs and singles that were released after Going Gray. End of Summer, banger in every sense of the word, definitely one of my favorite Front Bottom songs. And I did like the EP Anne, but that was mostly their older songs, just with a fresh new coat of studio production paint on it. So I guess I did have some faith in my fellow New Jerseyans going into this new album. Now, was that faith misplaced? Let's find out. The album kicks off with 2 singles that were released a couple months before the album, Everyone Blooms and Camouflage. And I remember when I heard these songs, when they were singles, I kinda didn't really feel anything. I didn't hate them, but they didn't really jump out or grab my attention or even sound good to me. But after listening to them in the track list, oh my god, they sound so much better. And they didn't even change. I just like them a lot more now. I guess I listened to them a couple times. I love how the quiet intro of Everyone Blooms is interrupted with these crushingly heavy guitars. It also showcases singer Brian Stella doing his signature talk singing that has been synonymous with the earlier Front Bottoms albums. Though it does sound a tad bit awkward because the crushingly heavy guitars are just cut off for this quiet-ish talk singing section. It doesn't really flow together that well. But it doesn't ruin the song for me, and I definitely like the overall message, how everyone comes into their own, in their own time and at their own pace. Everyone Blooms segues into the next song with a couple piano hits and a slow droning sound that's increasing as it goes. The band actually does a couple of these outro segues a few different times throughout the album. I do appreciate the effort, and it makes the songs kind of feel like they belong together on the album rather than just being a bunch of random songs put together for this album, which honestly is what every Front Bottoms album before this has been. But I do think that these outros and segues could have been handled a little more skillfully had they had some kind of common theme or motif or connected in some way. It would have made them a lot more impactful and a lot more of a useful tool to bring everything together even more, but it wasn't that. The next song, Camouflage, is without a doubt one of the best on the album, one of my personal favorites. It has everything you could possibly want in a Front Bottom song. That angular, alternative indie sound, seemingly random lyrics that start to paint a picture for the viewer, but you can never fully make out what they're all about. And a hook that's catchy as hell. I cannot stress that enough. The Front Bottoms, if they know how to do a couple things, hooks are definitely one of them. And I hate to be that guy, but this song sounds a lot like their old stuff. And I love it so much. And unlike the previous song, Brian and Matt transition into the talk sing section of the song so much more smoother in this song, and it just adds so much without really doing too much. So the album definitely starts off safely with these 2 songs that stick pretty close to their roots. Definitely nothing crazy experimental for the front bottoms going on here. But at the same time, it's a very strong start, and I think it was the right move to let their fans and everybody know that we're not pulling another Going Gray here. And me, as a fan and a listener, felt very, very comforted by that. The third track is Jerk, and I didn't really like this one at first, but it has grown a decent amount on me the more I listen to the album. I'm not the biggest fan. I'm definitely not the biggest fan of the electronic line, "Things like that don't matter," in the beginning, but thankfully it doesn't stick around or sound like that for the whole song. The chorus is also super corny on this one. "Yeah, I know that I look like a jerk, like a jerk." They could have come up with something so much catchier for this. They're the front bottoms. I know they could have come up with a better hook. It's kind of corny. Not a fan. However, it does have some good lyrics. Lyrics like, "The world is so fucked, I want to go back in the house," and "Where I buy and I use, but I'm not sure if it works," give off the vibe that this song was maybe written in quarantine or inspired by just being in quarantine, because those just sound like things I feel like we can all relate to in these times, or at least in the beginning of quarantine. Sonically, it sounds nice in the middle, and at the end there's these electronic which is another outro, I guess, but it doesn't segue or even sound anything like the next song at all. The next song, The Truth, definitely changes the mood of the album. It's a moderately paced acoustic guitar piece, and I think it was well placed here in the track list. However, as it tends to be with more front bottom songs than I like to admit, the lyrics don't always fully connect to each other. It could be a good thing, but most of the time it's an annoyance, for me at least. There are some great lines like, "Someone to drive me back to basics, because the truth got hard to trouble, and now my life just hurts my stomach." But then seemingly out of nowhere, Brian starts singing about driving to the West Coast and trying to get into a fight with someone. It just kind of ruins the mood and the vibe that he was setting up. And I'm not saying a song has to have lyrics that connect and make sense for it to be good. I mean, look at something like I Am the Walrus. It just seemed like Brian and Matt were setting up for one thing, but then didn't do anything with it and went in the complete opposite direction. And when these kind of things happen a lot, or in a lot of songs, in an album, it starts to get a little annoying for me. The song does end with a grandiose chorus, but it really doesn't do it for me, and the song is okay. The next song, however, really does do it for me, if you know what I mean. The fifth track is Mongomery Forever and Ever and Ever. Mongomery Forever was the third single released before this album was released. And like the first two, I didn't really like it when I first heard it, or I just thought it was meh, but I love it on this album. It's just a straight up poppy, catchy song that's got that front bottom sound. It actually reminds me a lot of their song Skeleton from Talon of the Hawk, and that's a good thing for sure. Definitely one of my favorites on the album. This song, again, has an outro that doesn't really fit with the song or the next song. The outro sees someone, maybe Brian Stella, reminiscing about a lost love and talking about being sober, but it's kind of hard to make out what it's about. The sober theme definitely does come up, though, again, later on the album, so that's a good connection they made right there. The next song, The Hard Way, sets the mood pretty nicely with these somber guitar chords. Brian sings about how he's not perfect and how he's falling apart, or at least the character in the song is, but I'm guessing it's about him. The song sees him talking to fate or God, blaming them for everything that's happening to him, and even asking them to go easy on himself, the main character. It's an enjoyable song, but it's not amazing. It doesn't blow me away. The next song, Leaf Pile, opens with this heavy rock sound that almost sounds out of place on the album, but I personally love it. This is one of the songs on the album where the lyrics actually amplify my enjoyment, and it's like, yes, finally, you can do it. I know you guys can do it. Come on, just give it to me a little more. Come on, just a little bit. This song has Brian singing about someone that came into his life, but actually ended up changing everything for the worse. He sings about wanting to just lay down in a leaf pile and relax, but he's too afraid to, because if he slows down, he thinks he's gonna crash really hard. And I think this is something that most people can relate to when they're in a stressed out state of mind. Maybe it's school or work or just personal projects where they're just working so hard on something and they're afraid if they stop or slow down that they're just gonna crash and not be able to do anything anymore. So I personally relate to this song a lot. Even when we go into the talk singing section in the middle of the song, the lyrics stay focused on what the song has been about mostly, and what can I say? You love to see it, folks. I love it, you love it, we all love it. Also, the outro in this song is a transition to the next one, and it actually works because it is so seamless that if you're not looking at the track list on your phone or in the car or wherever, you would not have known the song has changed at all. But one good outro / transition out of like 5 not the best track record. Now the next song is called New Song D, and the opening part of it actually reminds me of Baba O'Reilly. I do like the chorus and the ooh ooh, but other than that, I'm not a big fan of it. I just feel like anyone could have made this song and it wouldn't be that different. It doesn't have anything that jumps out to me as the front bottoms. I am a fan of this outro. It consists of people cutting each other off with these creepy voices and like muffled filters on them. It sounds really cool, but I wish it connected to the other outros or to the theme of this album or told some kind of story or something, but just another seemingly random outro. Fairbanks, Alaska is the next song, and it was the fourth and final single the band released before the album came out. And honestly, it was my least favorite. I didn't like it that much when the single came out, and it still kind of is unimpressive now hearing it in the album. Now, unlike New Song D, Fairbanks, Alaska actually sounds like a front bottom song. It just sounds like a meh one at best. I do like the lyrics on this one though. Brian is singing about how Fairbanks, Alaska is this place where everyone's just happy, everybody's high-fiving each other and just having a good time. I'd like to go to Alaska someday in my life, and because of this song, maybe I'll check out Fairbanks. It's such a nice place apparently that when Brian or whoever the character in the story is went to Fairbanks, he didn't check his watch, they didn't do any deep thinking, none of that, just experienced the place and all the people around it, and that sounds like a cool place to me. The music is where this one kind of falls flat though. If I had to use one word to describe it, it's just unimpactful. Now, not every song has to have super loud impact moments or even be loud in general to be good. But where this song fails is that it starts at like a medium volume for most of the song until about 2/3 of the way through the song. And in the last third of the song, you can tell they were trying to be louder and be a bit more impactful. But in reality, it only gets about like 5% louder, and I just don't feel any impact or anything from it. And this may sound like a silly nitpick, but Brian says Fairbanks, Alaska at least 15 times in this song, and it's just too much for me. The next track, Love at First Sight, is definitely one of the more stripped back ones on the album. It kind of feels like a more slowed down version of The Truth. Match drumming is not in your face or loud at all, and it complements the song so nicely. Definitely one of the cases where less is more. It's a pleasant song about someone who had love with someone but doesn't have it anymore. They do this thing though where there's a bunch of incomprehensible sounds in the background that sounds like people having a conversation. It gives off the effect that this is a live performance, but I don't think that's the case. I'm not sure, it could be, but I'm leaning towards more that it's not. Either way, it's a nice song. Not great, but not bad either. And there's another outro in this one which sounds like a jam sesh or just a completely different song than how the song was. And it's a whole minute long, so I think this is the longest outro on the album. The second to last song is Bus Beat. This song undeniably has the most personality of any song on this album. Really solid guitars and a nice bass hook right from the start. The xylophone hits and whatever that other instrument is in the middle of the song sound so cheeky in a good way. They add a lot to the song without being overbearing in the slightest. I think the other instrument is a thumb piano, but I could totally be wrong about that. This is another one of those songs where the lyrics stay focused, and that's why it's one of my favorites on the album. Brian sings about someone, probably himself, and I'll tell you why in a second. The girl keeps the guy numb, she keeps him blind, and when they're around each other, they really can't focus or concentrate on anything. The guy in the song says he's trying to get his life together, he's trying to get clean, and eventually he even wants to buy her a ring. And he says he's taking lessons and he's going to learn how to sing. And this is why I think the song is about Brian. Brian Stella has an unconventional singing voice. And I mentioned a couple times through this video that he sings a lot. It doesn't bother me though, I actually like it, and I think it adds a level of uniqueness to the front bottoms and kind of separates them from other artists by sound at least. The way he delivers the line, "I'm gonna learn how to sing," it sounds so unpleasant and so out of key, and you know what? I would listen to this whole song just for that one line. I just take it as a big middle finger to anyone who's told him throughout his career that he can't sing or that his singing sucks. And you know what? There's always going to be people like that if you're famous. And even if he was a great singer, he would still probably have people saying that to him, because people will complain about anything. The only thing I'm not crazy about in this song is the hook. I do it like that because that's the way my baby likes it. It's just not my favorite, and I know the front bottoms could come up with something better than that, but it doesn't ruin the song for me, and I still think this is the best song they could have picked as the closer for this album. Except it's not the closing track. The closer on this album is the song Make Way. It's a nice song sonically, and it does have some nice string parts towards the end, but again, the lyrics are what hold this song back. Do you see a common theme here? They really just don't do it for me. There's also this weird filtered voice of someone saying, "Nobody," throughout the whole track, and it just sounds totally out of place with how the rest of the song sounds. It's an okay song, and I don't think it should be cut from the album, but Busbeat would have made such a better closing track. What was the thought process? I'm really curious. I'd wanna, if they ever do an interview, I hope someone asks that question about this album. Why was Busbeat not the closing track? I cannot stress how happy I am that Brian and Matt did not choose to go down the same path that they did with Going Grey. That is like a huge relief for me. This album does take a few cues from Going Grey with a couple of electronic filtered voices, but most of the time it's not that bad. It doesn't ruin anything. It's just not my cup of tea, and I don't expect it or really think it fits the front bottom sound that much. There's also a handful of songs that have that pop punky sound that remind me of the Talon of the Hawk era, and that was definitely a pleasant surprise for this album. In fact, their only past music genre that wasn't really represented here is indie folk. It pretty much encompassed their whole self-titled LP, and I do like the sound, but I'm not really upset that it's not here. Does that make sense? Now let's talk about the outros. I can appreciate the band trying to flex some artistic muscles by adding vague, seemingly random outros to most of their songs here. It actually ends up giving the vibe that all of these songs belong in the same album, which is a good thing. But if the outros had been more connected and had a similar idea or theme to them, it just would have been so much more of a useful tool. It would have been so much more impactful, and I think I would have enjoyed the record a lot more. In Sickness and in Flames has some infectiously catchy songs with ecstatic pop punk anthems that really harken back to the band's early days, while the band is simultaneously dipping their toes into new ventures like synth sounds and filtered voices. Some of these experiments end up paying off, and some don't. In my opinion, the album doesn't really have any bad songs. There are some great tunes on here, but for every great tune, there's also a meh song. I also think the band will have to try some new things in the future to avoid sounding formulaic and falling in a musical rut. And to me, if the band writes songs about less cliche topics, along with songs that generally stay focused and on task with what the song is primarily about, then it's going to benefit them tremendously. In Sickness and in Flames is a good album, and I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. Definitely better than Going Grey. Not sure where it ranks among the other Front Bottoms albums. Probably my second least favorite, but I can't say that for sure yet. Thank you guys so much for watching. This was a lot of fun, but it took a lot more time writing the script and recording this than I thought it would. I thought it would take a good amount of time to write the script, but oh boy did this take a lot longer recording than I thought. Let me know what you thought of the video format. Let me know what you think I could improve to make this more enjoyable. I know I fucking cut my head off. I didn't give myself a lot of headroom here, so I'm gonna try to do that for next video. But like the video, I would appreciate it so much. Leave a comment if you like the band, what songs you didn't like, or even if you don't know anything, if you watched the video, you got here, leave a comment. Just do it. Thank you so much. Subscribe for more content, and I'll catch you on the next Music Monday with a different music topic. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice day.